Good morning and welcome to the Petitti Pro Garden Show. Thank you all for getting up early on this Saturday morning and being with us. A lot has been going on this week. We had some really warm temperatures, and I don't know if you've all been watching the Weather Channel, but tonight they're calling for 37 degrees, so that means frost. So we're going to be talking quite a bit about that today, and how some of you have been jumping the gun a little bit on getting things in the ground and mulching and all of those types of things. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. We have a guest with us today. We have Steve Brannick from Brannick Lawn and Landscape. And actually, Steve and I were talking earlier this morning about this thing with everyone mulching so early and what are the downsides of that. And the upside, all of you wanted to have your beds looking good this year early because we had warm temperatures, so you were ready to get out there, get your spring cleanup done, get that mulch down. And so several of you were calling the garden center saying, oh, we want mulch, this week. And here it was the first week of April. And I was like, I don't even have my mulch in yet because I wasn't recommending that you mulch this early. Well, Steve and I have an agreement on this. So Steve and I are going to be really talking quite a bit about that today. So if you have questions, like always, we ask you to give us a call or stop out with your questions. We're going to answer some of your questions in a few minutes. You can stop out at the store at 5828 Columbus Road in Louisville. We're right there on the corner of Columbus and Broadway. Or you can give us a call at 330-455-5997. Or remember, you can always email me your questions, cindypetitti@gmail.com. That's CINDYPETITTI@gmail.com. And we'll make sure that we get all of your questions answered. We'll answer you right away, but we'll also answer them on the air because, if you have a question, someone else probably has that same question. So, Steve, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
And thanks for being with us and sponsoring the show today. We were talking before the show started here about this whole mulching thing. And so let's, why don't you give me a little bit of information about your company and what you all do and what areas that you service. And then we're going to talk about some mulch.
Great. We've been in business for 34 years. We service Stark County and Tuscarawas County and a little bit into Summit County. We're a maintenance contractor. We do some landscapes, some patios, and some decks. And we also do some mowing and custom lawn programs.
Oh, okay. So you're sort of, you do a lot of maintenance, but
Yes.
Then you do some hardscaping as well, it sounds like.
That's correct. We do some water features also.
Oh, great. Wonderful. I might have some questions for you in a little while here. I have a couple water features at the store that needs a little bit of work. So, Steve, let us all know how that we can get a hold of you. If we want to get an estimate from your company, or we want you to come out and look at our property and you give us ideas on what we might need, how can we all get a hold of you?
Well, yeah, I can reach me by my phone, 330-735-3700, or our website, clipyourgrass.com.
Clipyourgrass.com. That's a catchy little website there.
Yes,
That sounds pretty cool. That's great. So, well, Steve and I are going to talk about mulch. And like I said a couple minutes ago, a lot of you wanted to start mulching early. And I was telling you, you probably should hold off. It's sort of a waste of your money because then by the 4th of July, your mulch doesn't look very good because all of April, we usually have so much rain. Here at the beginning of May, we've had a lot of rain. The color leaches out and you really need to top dress or fluff by the 4th of July. And Steve and I were talking about some other reasons that it's not a good idea to mulch so early. So, Steve, take it away. Let everyone know your ideas on why we shouldn't mulch so early.
Well, we feel that if you mulch, you're going to mulch that cold temperature into the ground. You need to let the soil percolate and get up to temperature, because the idea of the mulch is to keep the little roots of the plants warm and hold the moisture in, and we don't want them to be cold into the spring.
Right. And also, people tell us all the time, well, I want to mulch early to keep the weeds down. So I don't want to have to weed, so I want to mulch real early before the weeds come up. But see, Steve is telling us that that's not always a good idea. The weeds might come on up, but it also getting that mulch down too early is going to hold that cold air in. Just like it holds moisture in later in the season, it's going to hold that cold air into the soil, which that's not going to let your root system germinate and keep going. Just like I always say, if you can keep the soil warmer when you're starting starting new grass or starting new seedlings, everything's going to take off much more quickly. So you want to make sure that you're not putting that mulch down too early. Our soil temperatures right now still are not that warm. So if you have perennials that are still, starting to come up, remember you mulch too early. That is really going to keep that cold air in there, and they're not going to come in as quickly. So have you noticed that with your customers?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We try to recommend that they wait till the week before the holiday, or even wait till to get it ready for the 4th of July.
For a week after the holiday. Exactly. Right. If you mulch yourself, wait till Memorial Day weekend at least before you mulch. So Steve, what do you think that some of, regular homeowners, it's, out doing some of their own cleanups and stuff, what are some of the things that you recommend the homeowner can do themselves, but then also tell them some of the things that you think that they should always have a professional do for them?
Well, if you have, your beds, you can get them ready, clean up the leaves, get the weeds out of them, edge your beds. You can do that all way before the holiday or before it's time to mulch, so that
right.
When the soil temperatures come up, you can just put your mulch down.
Right.
And then the other thing that I like to tell people is, remember, the weeds will grow in the mulch, so you're never going to get rid of the weeds totally by mulching.
Right, exactly. Right. And so is there some of those things that maybe they could do their, like the clean out the leaves, from winter and the weeds by themselves, but edging is really, really hard for some people. They don't all have a power edger like you do.
That's right.
So, edging with a flat spade shovel, that can be quite backbreaking. So I always recommend to people that you should hire a landscaper to edge for you. At least once a year, have a landscaper edge for you, because that's really hard, back-breaking work. You can go ahead and clean up the bed yourself, but you know what? They never get quite as sharp of a deep, nice edge as a landscaper can get.
Right. Yeah. We have a lot of equipment that we can get a nice deep edge, and so it stays nice for them all year long.
Exactly.
They can keep it up with their weed whacker or whatever else.
Exactly, right. Yeah, could did that once a year. Have your landscaper really get a nice sharp edge on it. And Steve is definitely going to be able to give you an estimate on that. Probably if you give Steve a call, he could give you an estimate by how many linear feet of edging that you have. So what you could do is measure your stride, because most of you don't have a measuring wheel. Measure your stride, and let's say that it's 3 feet, and then you can pace off all of your bed edges, and then multiply ever how many steps you have by the distance of your stride, let's say 3 feet, and then you can give Steve a call and say, okay, I have 352 linear feet of edging. Can you give me a price? And I'm sure that he would be glad to do that. And you can give him a call with those linear feet at
330-735-3700.
Okay, give that us again, because sometimes they need it again.
735-3700.
See? And so that will be so much easier than, having him come out and measure it all for you. He can just give you a quote right over the phone. This is what you're going to need. And also, by getting that linear feet of edging, if you measure the width of your bed, you can tell Steve how wide your beds are, how long your beds are, and just from that, he will be able to tell you how much mulch you need, because he's going to know the average or the recommended depth of your mulch, and by knowing the square footage of your beds, and he knows how deep you should put your mulch, he will be able to tell you, okay, with that many linear feet and that wide of beds, you're going to need 6 or 7 or 8 or 25 yards of mulch, and that way you don't get more than you need. But then you'll also know, can I afford to do all my beds at once, or do I need to do part of them now and part of them later? But Steve will be able to get you a price on all that edging and all that mulching, because mulching definitely can be some work, getting that down and spreading all that mulch, because that is a lot of work. There's no doubt. Not everybody has a mulch blower in their backyard.
That's right. And we like to recommend that you maintain 4 inches, not do 4 inches a year, but you can maintain
that you maintain 4 inches. And Steve, I recommend to people a lot of times, because you like that 4 inches, but it builds up around the base of the plant and it can get too high, that about every 3 years you rake off all of the old mulch
Absolutely.
and put that in your compost pile, and then mulch with a brand new 4 inches of mulch. And it's going to be much better for your plants doing it that way. Because, man, I've been at houses and they're like, why are my shrubs not doing well? And you get in there and the mulch is built up around the crown and the base of the plant, 6, 8 inches. We have 3 inches of branching coming through the mulch, and it suffocates the plant.
It also allows the insects and the rodents to eat at the bottom of your tree or your shrub.
That's exactly right.
And we see that a lot with trees.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, yeah, that buildup of mulch, And another thing, when you mulch really early in the year, I know some people were like, oh, again, 4th of July, it's not looking the greatest. We're going to add a couple more inches of mulch. You do that twice a year, adding mulch early in the spring and then again for the 4th of July. In a few years, you got mulch way too high on that plant, and you want to make sure that you get that down a ways.
Yeah, we dig a lot of mulch out.
Yep, us too. We dig a lot of mulch out. Well, we're going to answer a few of the questions that you have called in about this week and tell you a few things that's going on. So the first question are about tulips, and she said, my tulips are all finished blooming. Can I just cut them off? And no. You can't cut them off because the leaves that are there is what's going to feed your bulb so that you have flower next year. So you want to make sure you can cut off the flower stalk, what held that little flower up there, that beautiful red or pink or yellow tulip that you had. You can cut that off, but you want to leave the leaves there until they totally turn brown, and you can just pull them very gently when they have released from the bulb. You want to be able to wait that long. Now, if you can't and you cut them off, you still want to make sure that they are completely brown. Now, with daffodils, you can easily fold them over, rubber band them, but tulips, that doesn't happen quite as easily. So you want to make sure that you do leave your tulips there. Or I always say, owning a garden center, just let them die and buy new ones from me in the fall, and you can plant new bulbs this fall. But you want to remember that you're not going to have a great bulb flowering next year if you cut your leaves off too early this year. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. The next question we've had is this week we have had so many people asking questions about grass seed. What grass seed should I use? Should I put my grass seed down now? And again, the soil temperatures aren't real warm, so you have to remember that you're not going to have real quick germination. When you are seeding, when the soil temperatures aren't real warm, using some annual grass mixed in is definitely going to help. And also, my tried and true is not to straw, but to lay a light layer of compost on top of your seed instead of straw. The compost is dark. It's going to capture the heat from the sun during the day, which will help keep the soil temps at the surface a little bit warmer at night, and that will aid in germination so that you will have quicker germination. You're going to have a quicker stand of grass. You'll be able to mow your grass more quickly. But you do have to remember, it is a little bit more costly, but remember also, you never have to rake it up like you do straw and clean it all up. So it's going to save you a lot of, I always say, heartache and headache, but it's going to cost you a little bit more. But it's very good for the soil. You don't need to add an additional fertilization usually, so you're fine with that. But that compost is definitely going to aid in quicker germination. You do want to make sure, though, that we're not going to have a freeze or a frost the day of seeding. So today, I'm telling you, it's not a good day to seed today. It's only supposed to get to 55 anyhow, but tonight they're calling for 37. So you want to make sure that if you are needing to do some seed work, I would probably wait till Monday or Tuesday before you do that. And hopefully then we will be out of this cold snap and we will have some warmer temperatures. But remember what the farmers always say. There is a chance of frost until the full moon of May. The full moon isn't until next Saturday, the 21st. And so we could could still have a frost until that time. If it's a clear night that night, a lot of times we'll have a frost, especially in low-lying areas. So be careful and don't plant too early. Now, if you have planted some tenders already out in your garden, you can swing over to the garden center today. We have frost cloth that will protect those things if we have a frost, and we cut it by the foot for you, so you can just get as much as you need. It's 14 feet wide, and so if you only need, a sheet that's 3 feet by 14 feet, we can cut that for you real easily, so you have a nice area that you can have covered. If you have your plants and you can't pull them in that you have in pots, you can cover with it. It's a very lightweight woven material, so you can cover those up. Now, today is a very busy day for us at the Garden Center. We have a lot going on, and I don't know if any of you saw your Fisher's ad this week, but Fisher Foods is having a health and wellness fair today, and I will be speaking at 11 o'clock at the North Canton store. On organic gardening. So if you don't have anything to do, it's a sort of a cool, dreary day today. Come on up at 11 o'clock to the North Canton Fishers, and I will be giving advice on organic gardening, how to get those started, and all the information that you need. And of course, we will be talking about organic eating as well, and why we want to avoid those GMOs and all of those kind of things. So please come on up there and take advantage of that. We also have a new product in. It is called Coast of Maine Soils and Fertilizers, and they are all aquatic related. We have lobster compost instead of cow compost. We have lobster compost. We have some great potting soils with lots of kelp in them. A lot of people are using, kelp as a great form of nitrogen right now. And so we have this new line in with all types of information on it as well. So we invite all of you to stop in and take advantage of that. Well, we're going to talk with Steve again about some of the things that we need to be doing in our landscapes right now, and some of the things that we should be waiting on. So Steve's going to go ahead and give us some advice on those kind of things.
Great. Right now is a good time. We've noticed a lot of shrubs need pruning some trees. You want to wait until after they're done blooming if they're of the blooming variety. That way, we always recommend trimming your shrubs twice a year. It's healthier for them. It doesn't let the branches get hardened off, and and it's a lot easier to do instead of trying to take all that growth off at one time.
Exactly. And also, we always, say fertilize and trim, twice a year. And people will say to me, Steve, so I don't want my plants to grow because I don't want to have to trim them once or twice a year, so I shouldn't fertilize them.
Oh, no, you want to fertilize them because they need to be healthy.
Exactly. They need to be healthy. So we always try to tell people that too. But, it's hard for a lot of people, Steve, to know how to trim their shrubs. They want to shear them because that's the only thing they know. And we know that that's not the healthy thing. So this is another thing that I usually recommend to my customers is, if they can at all, have a professional trim their shrubs, because you're going to prune. That difference between pruning and shearing is so huge.
Exactly. And, pruning does take a lot longer than shearing, and it is a little more costly, but it is healthier for your plant.
Exactly. And, that plant might, cost you $45 or $50. But if you shear it, it's probably only going to last you 5 or 6 years. If Steve comes out and prunes it, it could last you 20 years.
That's right.
Exactly.
And usually once you start shearing a shrub or a bush, it's pretty tough to get in there and prune it and get it back to its natural shape.
Yeah. I always tell someone, if you've sheared too long and you want us to come in and save it, it's usually going to take a good pruning, and it's going to look bad for 5 years before it ever starts to come back. Do you want it to look awful for 5 years before you want to bring it back?
That's right. Yeah. And the other thing too is, we'll prune your ornamental trees, up to 12, 15 feet.
Great.
And, and we're not going to hack them back like, you see some of the trees do.
Right. And, that is so healthy. And I'm glad you said that, ornamental trees, because those ornamental trees, they get so dense that they end up not blooming nicely. Right. And if you get in there and do a really good prune job where they're not laying against each other and girdling each other, that the trees will look so much better.
Right, and they'll survive a windstorm a lot better too, because the wind can go through them instead of breaking them.
Yes, that's a good idea. Right. And what about evergreens? What do you? We have a lot of people, Steve, ask us about evergreens. How should I trim my evergreens?
Well, we don't usually recommend trimming too many evergreen trees, because once you trim those lower branches off, they're never going to grow back.
And it makes them top heavy.
Absolutely. And then again, you get a good windstorm or something, and they're going to go over.
Right, because they're not deeply rooted. They're a shallow rooted tree, and so many times people do that. They don't look so good. But again, one of those reasons to trim slightly all the time so that they stay healthy, and then make sure that you're fertilizing them to create that, deep, substantial root system. Like we always say, a strong root system means a strong plant. Just like your walk with Christ, if you have a strong root system in the Word and in Christ, and you have a firm foundation, nothing can waver you. Just like a tree planted by the water. Glory.
That's right. We always recommend it's better to water deeply once than water a lot of times very lightly.
Oh my goodness, Steve, that's it's amazing, because I'm always telling people that all the time, because they want to water their grass for 15 minutes 3 times a day. I'm like, no. You want to really give it a good soaking, but only do it every other day.
Right.
You're going to use less water.
Now, those light waterings are good when you first
seed it. Exactly.
But once you start seeing that green come up, you want to stop those frequent waterings and go to a deep watering.
And the same way with your trees, huh?
Absolutely.
What do you recommend when you plant a tree?
Well, we recommend, every day for a few days. We want to make sure we get all the air out of there, so there's no air pockets.
Right.
And get it all settled. And we recommend, every other day a really deep watering. Just pretty much flood them and go from there.
Right, and then you can always back off from that. Go every day for a few days. Then you're going to go every other day for a week, and then you're going to go every third day for another week, and you're going to wean it off. But you giving it, again, that water, it's going to get a nice, deep, strong root system, and you won't have to worry about it. Well, Steve, let everyone know again how to get a hold of you, so that they need an estimate on any of the things that you do, and you might want to run down through some of the things that you do again, and your telephone number 2 more times. Great. So that everyone has time to write it down. Right.
Yes, our phone number you can reach us at is 330-735-3700. That's 735-3700. Or you can go to our website. It has our contact info, clipyourgrass.com. We can do any of your outdoor maintenance needs, patios, decks. We also pressure wash homes and decks and reseal them.
So you can build the deck, and then you can maintain it for the next 25 years
Absolutely.
For them, huh?
And same with the patio. We can, pressure wash your patio, reseal it, resand it, take care of it. Do waterscapes.
Great.
Landscapes,
Wonderful.
hardscapes. So.
All right, one more time. Give us your phone number, and then we're going to wrap up our show for the day.
330-735-3700.
Well, thanks so much, Steve, for being with us, and thank all of you for listening. Remember, I will be at Fisher's North Canton today giving the organic gardening seminar. We want to thank Fisher's for inviting us to their health and wellness fair that's going on today from 10 to 2. If you have time, you don't want to get out and do a lot of trimming today because the weather's not the greatest. So go ahead and head to Fisher's from 10 to 2 for the health and wellness fair. I'll be there at 11. Thank you all so much for getting up and listening with us and having your coffee with us this morning. Remember, you can call us at 330-455-5997. You can stop out at 5828 Columbus Road, right there on the corner of Columbus and Broadway at the Garden Center, to ask us all of your questions. And remember that we always want to help you. Remember, your local independent garden centers, your local independent stores is who wants to help you out and keep you and us all right here in our community. I want to thank you all so much for listening, and have a blessed week.